Okay, welcome back. Let's go ahead and finish this out really quickly. So, one of the things that we can do, there's two different ways that we can solve these problems. So I'm going to show you the way that I've always done it, but because I'm lazy and I don't like to memorize too many formulas, so if I know one formula or one method, then I tend to use that one because that's what I know and I don't always trust my memory. Then I'm going to show you how to use the point slope formula, which is really a lot easier if you remember it. Okay? So, first of all, if I wanted to write the equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 3x minus 4 and it passes through a particular point, I know that my equation is going to be y equals 3x plus b. So I took my slope of 3 because I knew that 3, since my line is parallel to y equals 3x minus 4, I just need to know the slope of that line and I can then replace it. But I still need to figure out what the b is. And the way that I do that is I take my point that I have, 1, 2, and I put it in place of the x and y in my equation y equals 3x plus b. Because if I can put in the x and the y, then all that I have left, the only variable that's left is the b, and then I can figure out what the b is. Then I can go back and rewrite my equation. So let me show you what I mean. So if I know that my y is 2, then I can rewrite this like this. 2 equals 3 times what's x? 1 plus b. And now what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out what b is because that's what I need to fill in over here in my equation. So 2 equals 3 plus b. Subtract 3 from both sides, and I get negative 1 equals b. Now that I know what b is, I can go back to my original equation that I was trying to create, y equals 3x plus b. I know my b is negative 1, so now I can rewrite this as y equals 3x minus 1. And that is the equation of the line with the same slope because it's parallel to this other one, y equals 3x minus 4. Notice that the equations are exactly the same, y equals 3x, y equals 3x. The only thing that's changed is the shift of where it crosses the y-axis. On one equation, it crosses at negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The other one, it crosses at negative 1, right? But the slope is the same, and it's going to go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. Same here, okay? So that's one way. That's the way that I've always done it, but you can see that there's several steps, and I have to remember what my goal is, which is find the b. And by finding the b, I replace the x and y with the point because that point is on the line. I can then figure out what the b is, then I go back and I put the b in. So you can see it could be easily be confusing. So here's another way to do it using point slope form. I know my slope, which is 3. So instead I can use this point slope form which says y minus my y value of my point equals my slope. You can see it's right up here. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So 3 times x minus 1. Do you see what I did? Y minus 2 equals 3 times x minus 1. So I took my formula y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1, put in my slope, put in the value for y1 and x1. Now I just have to simplify it. Y minus 2 equals 3x minus 3. Add my 2 to both sides so that I get it in slope-intercept form, and I get y equals 3x minus 1. So you can see that I got the exact same thing, just a little bit quicker. And as long as I know point slope form, that's the way to do it. All right? So now, why don't you decide how you're going to solve this next problem? Write the equation of the line that is perpendicular to y equals 2/3 x plus 2. So you've got y equals 2/3 x plus 2, and you want to find the line that's perpendicular to it, and it also passes through the point 4, -3. So first of all, decide whether you're going to use point slope or the slope intercept y equals mx plus b, whether you're going to solve for b or you're just going to go ahead and plug in your x and your y with the point slope form. Then once you do that, you need to figure out what your slope is. And that's where you go back to figure out what your slope is, knowing what you know about perpendicular lines. So what do you know about perpendicular lines? That's right. They are negative reciprocals. So take a look at the slope of the line that is perpendicular to your line that you're going to be creating. The slope is 2/3. So what is the negative reciprocal of 2/3? That's correct. -3/2. So now you know that that's your slope. Now you do what you want to do and figure out, or do what you feel most comfortable doing. Either the way that I did it the first way, where I use my slope and I replace x and y and I solve for b, and then I go back and create my equation, or use point slope, where I use my slope for the m, and I have this y minus y sub 1, where y sub 1 is my y value, and b is my, and x sub 1 is my x value. See if you can do that, and tell me what you came up with. Which way did you solve it? And did you come up with y equals -3/2 x plus 3? I did it both ways. You'll see right here. The orange is using slope intercept, where basically what I did was I said my slope is -3/2 x, y equals -3/2 x plus b. I took my 4 and my 3 and I plugged them in for the x and the y, and I solved for b. I found out what b was. B was 3. I went back to my original equation and I filled in the b with 3, and I got y equals -3/2 x plus 3. So that was using slope intercept form. I also then did it using point slope form. And you can see what I did for that. Down here I said my point is 4, -3, and I wrote out point slope form so I'd remember it's y minus y sub 1 equals the slope, which is -3/2, times x minus x sub 1. I took the 4 and the 3 and I replaced them for the x1 and the y1, or y sub 1 and x sub 1, and I got y minus a -3 became y plus 3 equals -3/2 x. And -3/2 times x minus 4 gives me -3/2 x plus 6, because -3/2 times 4 is -6. My 2 and my 4, -4 become a -2. -3 times -2 is 6. Then I subtracted 3 from both sides, and I got y equals -3/2 x plus 3. So that is using what we know about parallel lines and perpendicular lines to be able to solve problems and to be able to decide whether whether two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And we do that by looking at the slope, realizing that parallel lines have the same slope, perpendicular lines have negative reciprocals. Make sure you write yourself a key idea right here. And I will see you in class.